And it's Business O'Clock with Nona Pelsier. Hi, Nona. So New Zealand employers, now they're being urged, so the labour market's quite tight, so they're being urged to hire more older workers. Interesting. What do they mean by older workers?
Yeah, older workers are basically categorised as someone who's over 55 and younger than 75, but could sometimes be someone who's just over 50. So I guess in a way there's been a lot of discrimination. We've had some instances of that, and older workers do find it difficult to find work, and that's partly because employers would rather hire younger, fitter, more active, and presumably
that's an assumption, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
fitter and more active.
Yeah, more likely to stay with them for longer. But that's a bit of a misconception because these days, older workers are prepared to work, say, even up to 70, and rather than 65. And business groups expect that that's going to increase, that more people will be willing to work till 75. And that's because it's quite expensive to retire, and a lot of people just simply can't afford it. They must work. It's not a choice. And for those that it is a choice, they tend to have a lot more, well, they're more prepared to be outspoken, to provide value, take some risks. And that's a benefit for businesses that are looking for, insights and so on.
So if there are those benefits, what's holding these people back from getting jobs, those pre-existing prejudices?
Well, who knows? I mean, they really are sort of missing an opportunity is what some business leaders are saying. There are work sites you can go to, like Seniors at Work, for example, looking for people who are more mature in the workforce, and people are suggesting New Zealand should be taking a leadership role here, and that's partly because we don't have a mandatory retirement age. So we could be hiring people that are older and offering employment for longer periods of time. It does require some flexibility when you have an older worker. They might need to work shorter hours. You probably wouldn't expect them to work, every hour under the sun. And also there's going to be some restrictions in terms of physical abilities. But mentally, there's no reason why an older worker with all their faculties can't contribute just as much as a younger one. And certainly in New Zealand, we're having a really hard time recruiting younger workers. There aren't as many younger workers entering the workforce. For example, there's 1.5 million people over the age of 50. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we're not providing enough people to replace them as they retire, the ones that we assume are retiring at 65. It's the wrong assumptions to make. We should be looking to find ways to fill those gaps in our market, because we have to compete with Australia and Canada, UK, other places for these very young skilled workers, which we are really struggling to recruit.
Okay, so on the markets, we're seeing a bit of a global sell-off in stocks. Is this being put down to the coronavirus?
Yes. Absolutely. There is some concern that the economy, the Chinese economy is huge. So if it slows, and they've shut down all sorts of public transportation, Yep. They've extended their holidays, that could really lead to an economic slowdown in China, which would have an effect. I mean, if they need less services or they're, for example, the live import or live exports of crayfish into China have been virtually halted. And there's going to be some other flow-on effects from the shutdown of their economy. I mean, you look at some of the big cities, these are massive cities, no public transportation. If you start to count the cost of that, and we don't know right now how much that's going to cost, that starts to flow through into the markets. And we're seeing that right through Asia. And of course, we saw it in Wall Street overnight and in Europe as well. And so basically right now, our index fell just over 1% today, which isn't too bad compared with some of the markets in Asia. That was 122 points down to 11,000.